I'm working my way through a list of 200 questions, just questions that are pretty easy to answer, questions about my life, my preferences, things I've enjoyed doing, or things I wish I could do better. It's kind of fun to do, so I encourage you to ask these and answer these with other people you care about. So number 11, what songs have you completely memorized? It's the obvious answer would be lots of church songs. There are certain church songs that I've sung many times and I know by heart. Songs like Be Not Afraid, or Here I Am, Lord, or Gather Us In. Songs like that, I've sung them enough and heard them enough that I have them completely memorized. There are also lots of pop songs or rock songs that I have completely memorized, but I have to say I should have thought about that a little more before I started answering, because I can't think of one right off the top of my head. But lots of music I have completely memorized. I have a memory for that kind of thing, so lots of tunes upstairs. Next question, what would you rate 10 out of 10? I have a couple of musical responses. First, people who know me, have been watching these videos recently, won't be surprised to hear me say Steely Dan Asia. That's just a classic album, and one of the classic albums in the world of rock music that I really, really love. Lots of classic albums out there that would be 10 out of 10, but I really love that album. Not a song on it that I would say is not a classic. Another album like that for me is XTC Skylarking. When I first bought it, I think it was a little too much for me. It was a little beyond me in some ways. But over the years, I have really grown to love that album. And again, I think every song on that album is just a classic. Such great layers and instrumentation. There's a consistent theme throughout that album. Kind of a dark theme, but some good questions that they wrestle with on that album. Another thing that comes to mind that I would rate 10 out of 10, somebody has given me a bottle of Macallan 15-year-old Scotch. Hard to argue with that. It's the best Scotch I think I have ever had, so that's a 10 out of 10 for sure. Next question, this is an easy one. What job would you be terrible at? I would be a terrible police officer. First of all, I'd probably hesitate to pull people over or confront people who need it, and I would probably always be far too willing to let people go. So I'd be a terrible police officer. The danger of it also would frighten me. So thanks to those of you who are willing to embrace that challenging call. What are you absolutely determined to do? It took me a minute when I first came across that question, but I think I'm absolutely determined to avoid religious cliches. It's really important to me to try to say as much genuinely as I can, to avoid saying things that we just say because they're easy, to give the easy answer to a challenging question. I really try to avoid that. I hate to admit that there are times I catch myself doing it, but I really want to avoid easy religious answers and easy religious cliches, because I don't think they do us any good, and I think they really cheapen the mystery of faith. So that's important to me. I could go on and on about that. What skill would you like to master? I think I would say playing the violin. It's far too late, but I think that would be a cool instrument to play. I was in school with a guy in the seminary who had a beautiful gift for playing the violin. And it's funny, I asked him once, and I didn't even get the full question out before he interrupted me. I said, "You have such a gift for playing the violin. Do you think I could?" And he said, "No, you could never learn to play the violin at this age. Don't even try. it is incredibly challenging and frustrating. And he didn't say it with attitude. He just said, the violin is an instrument you really do have to start very early, and if you don't, you probably shouldn't even bother. So I took his advice, and I know I wouldn't have the patience to stick with it. So anyway, I think a lot of adults wish they could play the violin. What website do you visit most often? This is a pretty easy one, I think. eBay. I love eBay because you never know what you're going to find. There's always something new to search for. If there's a certain shoe that I love, I would love to search for that shoe and see if I can find it for a bargain, because I am a bargain hound. By the way, another thing I would rate 10 out of 10, Frye shoes, F-R-Y-E. They have some incredible shoes. I have a pair of wingtips with a lug sole that I absolutely love them. I don't think there's anything they could do to make those shoes better. So a pair of Frye shoes, I would also say, is 10 out of 10. Next question, what would your perfect room look like? This is a pretty easy one for me. I love wood tones. I love the warmth of wood. So I'd love a paneled room, some kind of warm, vibey room with lots of comfortable seating, probably a fireplace, but it would also have to have a wall of glass looking out into a forest or over an oceanscape. I love those rooms with 2 or 3 stories of glass, but I also would want the room to be warm and cozy, lots of wood tones, and probably rich colors like burgundy and dark greens and golds. I love that kind of theme, but I'd want it to be bright too. What kind of art do you enjoy most? I think what I really do enjoy the most is abstract art. I have some of it, and sometimes I love representational art, but I have to say that I really like looking at a painting or a photograph or a work of art that isn't instantly revelatory, that you really have to sit with it, let it affect you, and try to articulate what it is that you love about it or what you don't like about it. I like wrestling with visuals and letting those visuals reveal a truth, a longing, a hope, a fear. So that's really what I love about art that's more on the abstract side. What takes up too much of your time? This is an easy answer for me. It may not be the point of this question, but worry, no doubt. I have come to terms over the last 5 to 7 years that I generate lots of worry in my life. It's something that I've recently been trying to address, just because there's always something to worry about. And I've realized how often my worries are unfounded, or how often they're draining, how often they're counterproductive. I've always thought that worry is a way of preparing yourself for the future. Worry is a way of preparing yourself for the worst case scenario. And then you're relieved when it doesn't happen. And if it does, you're prepared, at least somewhat. But I've really learned that worry is so counterproductive at best, and it can be pretty destructive. So I spend way too much time worrying. Last question, what do you wish you knew more about? This is another pretty easy question for me. At least one quick answer for me, jazz. It's funny, I've always loved jazz. It's always appealed to me. There's always been this vitality and energy. When I would hear jazz, they would just instantly draw me in. But it's strange, I've never really delved into it. And especially classic jazz. I wish I knew more about it, especially being from Kansas City. The great news is it's not too late. Jazz is always there. There's an incredible library out there for us to get to know better. And locally, there are some great venues still for going to see live jazz. So that's my next 10 questions.